Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Monday, April 3rd, 2017 edition of VR News. Going to start with a few games. Let's start with Batman Arkham VR. When this first came out, it was a launch title for Sony PlayStation VR. We knew it was a timed exclusive, but not exactly when or on what platforms it would ultimately be released on the PC side of things. Well, now we know, and we don't have to wonder any longer. April 25th, both Vive and Rift owners are going to get a chance to play Batman Arkham VR. It's also going to take advantage of both proprietary controllers. So you get to use the touch controllers fully for Rift and the Vive controllers for your HTC Vive when you're playing. Couple of things to keep in mind. So developer Rocksteady crafted a beautiful looking game. I anticipate it even looking better on the PC because some of those shortcuts don't have to be taken. So I expect it to look really good. Hopefully it's going to be priced accordingly though, because the one thing to also keep in mind is it's about an hour long. So you're not even getting basically a full-length movie out of it. It's roughly 3 American sitcoms back-to-back without commercials. So in that time, yeah, you can beat it. Now, if the price is fair, shouldn't matter. Gameplay-wise, it does a lot right. It's not just a graphical game. It's got little snippets of things that on their own would make fantastic VR games. So hopefully Rocksteady is using these funds to craft something special. What I would love to see is a Batman game, 5 to 10 times the length that really digs into the canon, into the lore, and delivers something special. Hopefully that's on the horizon. So I imagine it's going to come down to support, how much the PC community supports the game ultimately when it gets released here. So again, April 25th, no word on the launch price. Next game, another one I'm excited about, especially after playing Doom 3, which was essentially a VR mod. Well, modders are doing the exact same thing for Half-Life 2, which, was a great game and also had so many of us stealthily install Steam at the time who would have thunk over a decade later that's kind of the norm now, but back then it was a weird request to have to install it. But it was a fantastic game and easily one I will go back and replay again, just like I did with Doom 3, because it felt like such a new experience in VR, and urge anybody who enjoyed that game the first time around that's into VR to play it again when this mod is available. Especially the gravity gun. I was going to move on and almost forgot that. The authors point out, if you played the game yourself, you know how much fun the gravity gun was. Well, yeah, you're going to be able to use that with your touch or your Vive controller. I think that alone is just going to be an absolute blast. In that world, to be able to use that gun and feel like you're there, that's going to be cool. Third game, Hover Skate VR. According to Upload VR, the closest you're going to get to Tony Hawk VR, probably in the near future anyways. So it'll be a while. Now, I kind of grew up in the 70s, but really my teenage formative years were in the 1980s. And easy to say that was kind of a golden age for skating. Games like Skate or Die, 720 in the arcade. Skating culture was huge. Doing the tricks, definitely something I did. Kind of made a bit of a return. Not that it ever really went away, but with the Lords of Dogtown in the early 2000s and Jackass, it kind of really came back a little bit into the popular mainstream. But game-wise, other than Tony Hawk, yeah, there's been some pretenders, but, nothing amazing. And here we go, we're going to get something in VR. Even though this is going to sound strange, guys, how you control it, I think it could work really well. Now, my fear just reading the title was, oh crap, a skating game on a gamepad or a controller, how the hell are they going to make that work? Well, that's kind of where the innovation comes in. They're going to allow you to do the trick, so you've actually got to make gesture motions with your Vive or your touch controller. So when you're doing ollies or riding a rail, whatever the hell you're doing, you've got to do the moves in the right way, the right sequence, the right feel, timing, etc., to actually pull off those stunts and tricks. I think that is going to be freaking fantastic, and definitely for even a guy like me to kind of, wipe the dust off and pick up skating again. So very cool. Supposedly over 200 tricks. So just imagine that, learning those with your hands, feeling like you are that instrumental, with regards to the timing, that it's you in there. I think that's got potential to be super immersive. Still in early access. We'll let you know if I hear anything more about it, like the price and exact details on launch date. All right, HTC celebrating their first year since launch with Vive Port subscription service. Now, keep in mind, this is Vive Port. This is not Steam VR. While there are some games available, the majority of what is on offer are experiences. So you're paying $7 a month, $6.99 US to be, very specific. You're going to be able to have 5 items at any given time in your queue. So let's say at the end of the month, you want to keep one, return 4. Well, you can do that. You can keep that first one and get 4 additional ones, as long as it always adds up to 5. Of course, you can have less, but if you want to maximize your $7, you're probably going to have that quota of 5 filled at all times. So while there are some games, it's mostly going to be stuff like Everest VR, The Blue, Fantastic Contraption, that kind of idea. Still, not bad. And all Vive owners are going to get a free month of that Vive Port service when you sign up. Next story, Ikinema teasing more impressive full-body mocap with the Vive trackers. So now that these things have launched and making their way into developers' hands, they've decided to cut a new video, and it's amazing to see how far they've come just in 2 months. So the last time we talked about these guys was February 4th. They used 5 trackers. This time it's 3 trackers, and the motion capture actually looks even better. So less trackers plus better plus very affordable is not too bad. So what they're charging for this software, and they call it Orion, a standard license, $500 per year. Now remember, if you are a studio that does a lot of motion capture, but you might not be high-end, that's not a bad deal. That is pretty good. It requires a single PC, Vive, 3 Vive trackers, and yes, the motion capture isn't going to be as high detailed. It's actually pretty low. It is way more cost-effective. So it depends on what you're looking for. I think it has the ability to really revolutionize animation kind of at the indie level, which is something you typically don't see. You'll see that big jump to AAA, not a lot of that fine animation in between. I mean, it does happen, sprite-based games especially, but polygon games, not so much. So it'd be nice to see what people pull off with Orion and just hell with those trackers in general. Next story, Crytek detailing how to keep VR frame rates stable in a series of new developer diaries. Now, what I admire about these guys is they haven't had the best of news. So they've had layoffs, they've had some shutdowns, and yet they're making a lot of this information freely available via their dev diaries to developers at large. And they talk about some challenging stuff. And how they're launching this is, look, VR developers, they say in their statement, across genres and around the world are all working on the same problems as we explore this new medium. It is a great time to share knowledge and experience and to work together to advance gaming in this exciting new field. I love that attitude. Absolutely not selfish, sharing, communicating. Hopefully that's going to go both ways and all ways. And that technology is shared. It's going to raise that lowest common denominator in terms of quality, in terms of function. So really, really cool. Props to them for sure. Some of the stuff they talk about, like foveated rendering, they actually really tear it apart nicely. So if you remember me talking about foveated rendering in the past, or you've heard the term and you don't understand how it works, the 101 explanation that I've given many times is when you're staring at the screen, the center of the screen, regardless of where you're looking, always has the most detail, the best textures. The farther out you go towards the corners of your view or the screen, the worse that quality gets. And every second pixel may be even omitted around near the perimeter. All of that to boost frame rates. Well, they actually show with their method that they used in Robinson the Journey is it's 3 sections. It's the middle section, then which they call the near area. Then they've got the blending area, which is kind of the second rectangle out a little bit further. And then the third, the wide area. That's the outermost kind of rectangle. And the different qualities at each. They talk about how to prevent dropping frames, old tricks that may not work anymore. A lot of lens effects just don't work the same or at all in VR. New tricks, of course, selling distant objects by, going hyper-realistic with stuff like the user's glove, for example. How to deal with open world, etc. So if you're a developer or somebody who's just keen on getting started with VR, check Crytek's Dev Diaries out. Very cool stuff. All right, this next story, Virtuix Omni. These are the VR treadmill guys who I've talked about probably at least 3 or 4 times over the last almost a year. Well, they have announced that they are in a partnership with HTC and that Arizona Sunshine is going to get Virtuix Omni support. Now, they haven't given kind of any details on what that means to be a partner, but they say that it will enable them to work more closely with HTC on hardware and Omni content. So probably information sharing would be my guess based on what they're saying. The other thing that I have an update in, and I thought I would mention it because I kind of, I didn't rant, but I did mention it as a negative, was the canceling of a lot of the international orders because they weren't able to work with the 175 pounds in a realistic way. Well, find out now that not only did they refund every single international order, they did it with interest. So definitely kudos to them. And I understand you shouldn't have to be giving a company props for doing the right thing. But when so many examples are out there of companies scamming people, you know what? I certainly don't think it hurts for the odd company that does it right to get mentioned. So cool for those guys. And then the last story, guys, just a little lighthearted, but funny as hell. These documentary people, I guess they were, I was too busy watching the Chimp, were filming a captive chimp, unfortunately, but it looked like he had a lot of area, not that that helps to walk around in, but they were filming the chimp with a 360-degree camera. Chimp is looking, Chimp is, deciding, should I? Grabs a stick, and if you've ever seen chimps with sticks, these guys can use tools very well, definitely cousins. Sure enough, throws the stick out there, grabs the camera closer, grabs it, and basically steals the camera and says, it's mine now. Throws it around a little bit, which also they mention is one of the pitfalls of 360. You want to keep things stable. Watching while the chimp is throwing the camera around, definitely not going to help with VR sickness. But what's really funny about this, not just the fact that he stole it, which was funny as hell, or the coolness factor of him using the tool, but the fact that he was willing to parlay a trade about 20 minutes later. A Fanta, yes, a Fanta soda pop for the camera. Chimp agreed, gave the camera back, got his Fanta. Just very cool. All right, guys, that is it. May not be Fanta, but cheers.